Is it just me, or was this week's Jump a masterclass in manga? My hype after reading every chapter this week just did not go down. You can bet that I've got my personal top 10 chapters of this week, but the order, now that is the hard part. Hey everybody, Axel Blaze here with another weekly Shonen Jump review, and this week was packed with good stuff. The cover and lead colors went to My Hero Academia with the latest character popularity poll. The other color pages for this issue went to Undead Unluck and Mission Yozakura family, and there were also 2 color pages for the Promised Neverland one-shot and the special chapter for Hokkaido Gals Are Super Adorable, one of the weekly series in Jump Plus. I highly recommend Hokkaido Gals. It's a super sweet rom-com with top-tier waifu candidates. Top tier. You can read it for free on the Manga Plus app. Other than that, One Piece was on break this week, so please don't ask why it's not on this week's list. And as always, my thoughts on the series we'll be talking about and their positions on my top 10 list are all based on my opinions. I welcome any and all discussion on this week's chapters in the comment section, and that includes the ones not on this list since I do read every series in Jump. With that out of the way, I'm Jordan, aka Axel Blaze, and let's talk about the 12/6/2020 issue of Shonen Jump, the first issue of the 2021 run of the magazine. Now, before we get into the top 10 proper, we start with the honorable mentions. This week's 2 honorable mentions are Mission Yozakura family and Mashle. For Yozakura family, we've got one hell of a setup chapter. The Yozakuras are gathering up their family and allies as they prepare to take on Tanpopo. It's familiar face after familiar face as Taiyo continues to train with his grandfather-in-law. The chapter ends with the reveal that Taiyo isn't the only one that had a Yozakura blood transfusion in a very nice double-page spread with Grandpa. The color page was very nice too with the family jazz band. Main reason why it didn't break into the top 10 for me was because it was a setup chapter. A good one, but a setup chapter nonetheless. As for Mashle, Mash's trial ends on a positive note despite the protests from the Desert Cane Visionary, and a few other members of the Visionaries. Mash has the support of 2 Visionaries, the Headmaster, a highly respected former Visionary himself at that, and even the man conducting Mash's trial. He can't overlook the fact that Mash saved his life despite what he said to him earlier. That said, Mash's sentence is put on hold for now, but the condition given to him now is becoming this year's newest Divine Visionary. The chapter leaves us with a look at whom we can only guess is the shadowy image of Innocent Zero's leader. Now, there's nothing wrong with this chapter here. It's great as always. I just personally put it at the 11th spot this week instead of in the top 10. And like I said before, this week was just that good. And we begin the best of the best this week with Chainsaw Man. Now, as Makima celebrates her victory with a cigarette and coughing on said cigarette, one of the bodies behind her rises up, and it's Denji. With chainsaw in a hand and Makima in the blade's reflection, Denji slashes through her body and reclaims the Pochita that she took from him. Turns out he vaguely remembered the ability to split himself from the fight when he had transformed into super OP version of Chainsaw Man. The chainsaw he used was made from Power's blood, and it's preventing Makima from healing right away, and soon Kishibe is there to pick the 2 of them up. We transition away with a few panels of the city and its people before seeing Denji and Kishibe talking in an apartment building. They're being very vague about Denji's plan as Kishibe tells him to hurry back to the front lines since Denji is arguably the best devil hunter he knows at this point. Hurry as much as his body lets him anyway, which is foreshadowing there. As Denji is left by himself, he talks to an unseen Makima while preparing dinner. Important to note here how many unmarked containers are in the fridge. He sits down to eat and soon confirms our suspicions. He's eating the chopped up pieces of Makima. There are so many amazing things about this chapter, so let's discuss. First, it was incredible to see Denji showing that he's not just some idiot and show Makima that she underestimated not only him, but also his bond with Power. Because of that bond, they were able to overcome Makima, but not before showing off the panel calling back to the very first Shonen Jump cover for Chainsaw Man, featuring the reflection of Makima in the chainsaw's blade. While everything else around the blade was different from the cover in this chapter, we see the exact same reflection, and that is an amazing detail. It is absolutely amazing and so well done. The second part of the chapter with Denji cooking Makima for dinner is another example of him not being as dumb as Makima thought. He clearly remembered her mentioning that certain devils were erased from existence after being eaten by Chainsaw Man, and that's clearly what he's trying to do now. As for whether or not he succeeds, we'll have to wait until next week's final chapter. But that last double page spread is just surreal. After all of the blood, guts, murder, and fighting the past few chapters, the emotional roller coaster, we see Denji just peacefully eating dinner in a clean, empty apartment. This manga has been a roller coaster from start to finish, and next chapter is going to be the end for this wild ride. And I'm curious as to how things are going to end. Is this the end? Or is this just a setup for a potential sequel series under a different name? Whatever happens, one can't deny that Chainsaw Man is going to be discussed for years to come. It had one hell of an impact, and an anime is a must. Taking silver this week for me is Jujutsu Kaisen. Mahito thinks he has victory in the bag as he plans a countermeasure against Yuji's attacks, only to find out that Itadori now has complete control over his divergent fist technique. Rising up in the background, Todo calls out to Mahito, telling him that he can't defeat his brothers in arms. And I quote, "An arm is merely a decoration. The act of applause is an acclamation of the soul." Todo's words are merely a bluff, however, for the loss of his hand means he can't use his curse technique by himself anymore. But this doesn't matter. The distraction is enough for Yuji to connect a devastating black flash that cancels out Mahito's transformation. In one of the best speeches of the manga, Yuji tells Mahito that he is going to kill him. No matter how many times he comes back or changes, he will hunt him down and kill him. The curse feels legitimate fear as prey rather than predator and runs away to the feet of Geto. Holy... This chapter was one of the best in this entire arc. Just, wow. The fight in this entire arc have changed Yuji, and it's so fascinating to see him have no mercy with taking down Mahito. And it's very reminiscent of like the Gon and Pito dynamic from Hunter x Hunter. Not to mention the Todo elements of this chapter were on point. The man is a legend. And speaking of legends, this chapter had not one, not two, but 3 double-page spreads that were so good. Akutami Sensei, you mad lad, well freaking done. Now, the cliffhanger question is this. Will Geto save Mahito or kill him? Considering the wolf imagery used for him, it's very possible that Geto is about to murder the hell out of Mahito. That's at least what my money's on, but we'll have to wait a week to see. Or maybe more, depending on what the author comments meant for this week. Good man. My hero takes the bronze this week as a Mirio-led myriad of events happen in this chapter. We open with color pages and the 6th character popularity poll, the one I talked about in my latest podcast episode, before we dive right in. Turns out that everyone already knew that Mirio asked Eri to try and bring his powers back, and boy was Eri freaking precious in this flashback. Mirio calls out for any help he can get to protect Best Jeanist from the oncoming Nomu, and in an epic 2-page spread, Ida, Nijire, and even the heavily injured Bakugo leap in to save our Denim Dynamo. In a quick discussion between mentor and mentee, Bakugo finally reveals his official hero name, and I feel bad for anyone that expected anything normal. I laughed out loud at this panel. As this is going on, Dabi is trying to burn Shoto to death and send them both to hell, as Endeavor can only sit there and watch. Deku won't stand for this and uses Black Whip Suyu style before calling out to Endeavor and snapping him out of his funk. Right as Makia breaks free from Genis wires, Endeavor delivers an uppercut that knocks Makia to the ground. And the giant is down. Momo's sedative from several chapters back has finally kicked in. All of the pieces are in place. The heroes could still win. Or at least that's what Horikoshi would want you to think. I'm pretty sure we're still going to see another MacGuffin from the villain side of things that will allow the villains to get out of there. With everything that's been done to tarnish the heroes' reputations, we're not going to see all of the villains get defeated here. That's not how this seesaw works. My prediction aside, though, I really enjoyed this follow-up after last week's Muriel reveal. I'm saddened a bit that the only surprise here was him being there rather than him having his powers back, but it is what it is. That said, my favorite thing about this chapter was the relationship between Bakugo and Best Jeanist here. The respect that Bakugo has for his first mentor. Is his name ridiculous? Absolutely. But he wanted Best Jeanist to be the first to hear it. Even if it made Best Jeanist's eyes bleed from how childish it was. Great explosion, murder god dynamite. It's gonna be a fun to advertise to the masses right there. Taking fourth place is Black Clover, and the assault on Spade Kingdom begins. As Noct rallies the troops, surprisingly including Sally, Rades, and Voltos, the Spade Kingdom resistance declares their attack on the Triad. This gives the Clover Kingdom Knights a chance to invade the Triad's castle. Now this is where the game of chess begins. For as soon as the Clover Knights get inside the castle, the giant demon from the previous chapter emerges from the snow to attack the town. Xenon of the Triad had prepared this demon in the event that the resistance decided to show up. But then Noct pulls out a reverse Uno card while they're playing chess because Mario Leona jumps out of nowhere and punches the demon in its face. This, to me, was a great start to the retaliation against the Spade Kingdom. And go figure, I was right on the money with that Seke prediction of him only being there because the king made him go. Noct telling Seke to sacrifice himself was pretty damn hilarious too. The giant demon intrigues me since it looks incredibly similar to the demon that Licht transformed into, and now I'm just wondering if it has any connections to any of the four kingdoms or the elves. I'm gonna make a very, very bold prediction here, and maybe guess that the Triad transformed Yuno's dad into the demon. But that is a really, really bold prediction, and I could be very, very wrong. So the Seke prediction was very easy. This one, not so much. But time will tell. For now, go get it, Mario Leona. I'm absolutely cheering you on. In fifth place is Dr. Stone, where Senku's team in America is tasked with taking apart the Medusa and analyzing the device. They need to be careful though so that the Americans don't get a leg up on them. The plan? They decide to find a world-class watchmaker to help them inspect the Medusa. So, Ryusui recommends a location, Chelsea draws a map, Senku converts it into a grid that can be faxed, and poor Yuzuriha painstakingly draws it out. Poor girl, oh my gosh. They resurrect the latest eccentric member of the cast, and he states that the technology in the Medusa is beyond the science of the 21st century. Yet this guy is a master craftsman. He notices a blackened part of the Medusa, temporarily fixes it, and tests the Medusa on himself, resulting in him turning back to stone. There is a lot to appreciate in this chapter. So Nikki is showing off great leadership with the team left in America. We had a lesson in history about Osamu Tezuka creating manga remotely while abroad, and making a watch craftsman character to dissect and analyze the Medusa, incredibly fitting. The mystery around the world petrification continues to add more questions than answers, and I am loving it. I am really looking forward to the eventual payoff, but in the meantime, now that they have a semi-fixed Medusa, I'm wondering how that is going to affect the plot. So I'm very interested in that. I am putting Sakamoto Days in 6th place, and with this chapter, we're introduced to the new character, Officer Nakase. She's looking for information on the masked vigilantes from the previous chapter and ends up chasing Sakamoto and Shin through a shopping district. She chases them as hard as she can, but Sakamoto has the moves and skills to evade her, all while eating a lot of food. At one point, Nakase tries stopping some thugs from harassing a young girl, but she ends up being kidnapped herself by those bad guys. The older officer seen earlier in the chapter visits Sakamoto's house to tell him that Nakase has gone missing, so him and Shin jump into action, especially since Sakamoto's daughter is a fan of the female officer. They save Nakase and some other girls after beating up the bad guys, leading to Sakamoto losing weight? Only for him to rebound to his portly self the next day. Wow. Okay, so it's nice to see the manga fleshing out more characters, and I think Nakase is a nice addition. She plays the honest and earnest do-gooder, and that's a good contrast to Sakamoto's violent do-gooder character. It's also funny that Sakamoto can apparently lose all of his weight a la Fat Gum if he's active enough, but then he can also rebound in a day by eating a bunch of food. As goofy as he is, the creative action moves he's capable of are really cool, and he's quickly becoming one of my favorite protagonists in Jump right now. I love him and I love this manga. We Never Learn comes in 7th place as Mafuyu grapples with the fact that she loves Naruyuki, but she's been unable to do anything about that for several months because there's still that line in her head about him being her former student. She's given a ticket for 2 to the amusement park by her sister and friends, and ends up going with Naruyuki on Christmas Eve. The date goes how you would mostly expect of Mafuyu, before a misunderstanding and her fears of losing Naruyuki leading her to reaching out and holding his coat sleeve as she says no, she doesn't want him to go. They end up going on the Ferris wheel next, where they can clear things up about the misunderstanding and they give each other gifts, though Naruyuki's sewing skills greatly outshine hers, as we all expect. And soon, we get the 2-page confession of love, and the last page has their kiss. About time! The chapter was a nice parallel to the time travel chapter featuring Naruyuki and a younger Mafuyu. And yes, that's a thing for people that didn't read that part of the manga. I'm excited to see how this route ends, and I'm wondering how far they'll go with it. There's also rumors of a bonus chapter happening, so fingers crossed for that. Either way, we're just about at the end, everybody, and it's been a fun ride. I've enjoyed We Never Learn so much, and it's going to be bittersweet seeing it end. 8th place goes to Undead Unluck as Fuko continues her time-traveling journey through Andy's memories. But a major obstacle stands in her way. Victor. The black-haired monster man refuses to let Fuko go any further and aims to kill her and reclaim his body. He kills her again and again, and each time he does that, she gets sent forward in time rather than backward. If he kills her in 2020, in Andy's memories, she'll be dead for real. Victor releases a devastating attack on the city, but Andy is there to save Fuko in the nick of time. I'm disappointed that we couldn't go further back into Andy's memories, but I can't deny that Victor hunting down Fuko through time was awesome. That said, our mysterious author is currently confronting somebody from under. So what's going to happen when Andy and Fuko return to the present? What's going to happen with Victor? So many questions. So let's see how many get answered next week. Beating out the last series in the top 10 is Hard-Boiled Cop and Dolphin at the 9th spot. While Orphe is enjoying the pool at the villa, the dastardly dad and son watching over the place hatch their scheme to get rid of our favorite dolphin cop. As Orphe is about to grovel on the ground, Shark and Choco emerge from the basement and put on one hell of an act. The evil embezzling dad and son try to make an escape to grab the hidden ledger before it's too late, but Shark of course is able to find it and lord it over them. Not before subjecting them to a game of Mahjong though. The chapter ends with a call made to the special division captain that owns the villa, and she definitely has that Tamura character design charm. So, Any chapter where I get to see Shark Choco and Orphe playing off of each other for laughs is a win for me, and I loved getting to see them put that bastard of a dad and a son in their place. Plus, Orphe's facial expressions in this chapter are so on point. And another female character joining the cast is pretty awesome to me. Not to mention she has a past with Orphe. I want to know the details as soon as I can, but I'm a patient man. I want to see where this goes. Now, rounding out our top 10 is Build King, and the Toriko callbacks in this chapter are strong. Toriko had a food ingredient market, and Build King has a house material market. After visiting the market, Nana takes the boys out to eat. Tonkachi orders alcohol, but he's too young to drink, so Nana ends up drinking it. Tonkachi orders more alcohol, and then Nana falls asleep in a drunken stupor. As the brothers explore the rest of the island, they come across the shabby houses previewed in the last chapter. And apparently, they're really big bandits that wear houses as armor. But again, it's shabby, so Tonkachi easily defeats them with his hammer. The bad guys complained about peace for the baddies, so Renga builds them new house armor. And then the chapter ends with an upside down panty shot of the female leader of the house bandits. Shimabukuro sure knows how to draw cute women, and ugly dudes too, though. I mean, jeez, God, the ugly guys that this man is capable of making. Like, yes, he makes cute girls, but so many ugly guys. Oh. The big thing I liked here in this chapter was the building material market. I thought the ingredient market from Toriko was pretty cool, and I can definitely see the boys using this market in the future to gain materials and start some story arcs because of the market. I'm also curious to know what that lady is doing with those giant house bandits, so that should be resolved in the next chapter. The series is growing on me more and more, and I honestly hope that trend continues. With that said, we find ourselves at the end, and like I said earlier, this week as a whole was awesome. Other than maybe our Blood Oath and Mori King's chapters this week, everyone else had a really good showing, and I definitely want to know what you guys thought in the comments down below. How do you feel about Chainsaw Man supposedly ending next week? What's going to happen to Mahito after getting trounced by Itadori? And when will Cop and Dolphin give me another half-body shot of Orphe to put in these videos? Let's get a discussion going down in the comments. Before we end things though, I'd like to mention now that I'm going to be changing how I do Jump reviews one more time. Rather than do a review video every week, I'm going to do a monthly review instead. Main reason for this is that the current balance between work time and effort put in does not equal out to the amount of views that a single one of these review videos get. Another reason is that I do have other content plans for Monday and Wednesdays in the future that I would really love to do, and as it is, the weekly Jump reviews kind of take away from that. I love reviewing Jump, especially the series that other manga YouTubers don't necessarily cover, but again, I need to weigh the pros and cons of work and effort versus views and results. I promise to make some awesome content with this new time that I have on my hands though. And like I said, I'm going to cover weekly Shonen Jump reviews in a similar format where I'm doing my top 10 at the end of every month. And we're going to review the month as a whole, and I think that's going to be awesome as a look back. Especially since, sometimes you can't just judge a manga by a single chapter. It's how they bridge together that, really matters. But enough of that. With that being said, thank you to anyone that's made it to the end of this video. If you liked it, it would be awesome if you gave this video a like, or if you, like I said, if you have any other comments, any kind of interaction with this video is fantastic. Also, if you haven't done so already, it would be awesome if you would subscribe to see more of my future content. I've got another podcast episode coming out this Friday, so if you don't want to miss it when it comes out, hit the bell icon to be notified upon its release. Until next video, my name is Jordan, aka Axel Ablaze, and you can call me by my new hero name, Awesome Dolphin Explosion YouTube Dynamite Cop Man. Or you can still call me Axel Ablaze. That works too. Bye-bye, everybody.